Good morning, everybody. I don't have a channel specifically devoted to anything orchid. I don't think you need to. I don't think I need to. I may eventually. We'll just have to see. But today, I'm going to specifically talk about Phalaenopsis orchids. These are the kinds of orchids that you can buy in a store. Every single department store sells them. Drug stores sell them. Odd gas stations sell them. But the point is, they look like the most beautiful things in the world. You often get them as gifts, and what do you do with them? Like, you get them and they're beautiful. Like, I don't want to touch them. I don't know how to take care of them. And then they end up on your table and they die. They are one of the most hardy mother flippin' plants that you can take care of in a house. They're beautiful. The payoff is totally rewarding. They just don't need much. And today I'm going to walk you through really quickly, I hope, how to take care of one, how to water one, and I'm also going to repot one a little later on. So let's get started. Now, I could go into that orchids are epiphytes in nature and what they do and how they grow. I'm not going to get into any of that because chances are this is your first orchid or you're trying to save an orchid. So really, primarily, that's what we're going to walk through. Orchids want two things and you've got to worry about them. They want more than that, but let's start with just two. They're really not that finicky. Number one, all of my orchids that you see here, along with my other low light loving plants, are sitting in this window for a reason. This is an almost completely north facing window. They don't get ever direct sunlight on them at any time. And it's really important. Orchids don't like sunlight directly on their leaves. As you can see right here, this is what an orchid burn looks like. If the sunlight comes in, this is what it does to the leaves. It burns the heck out of them. And that's a good way to piss off your orchid. They don't want that. So as long as your orchid is in a room that sees a lot of bright light, but never is gonna get direct sunlight on it, feel free to put that sucker in there. The next is water, and really we're gonna go over to my orchid station and we're gonna have a look at how you can water your orchids. It's the easiest thing in the world. Hot mess. This is where I would do all of my orchid work if any of them needs repotted. There's leca tablets over here. There's different mediums and things, and all of that's for now unnecessary. Let's just talk about how you would water an orchid. This right here is one of my Phalaenopsis orchids. He's the one that we saw that had some leaf burn on him. He's doing a lot better, but and I know that when you get an orchid in the store, probably it's not going to be potted in a terracotta, and it's going to have sphagnum moss instead of bark. But the process for watering is the exact same thing. Check it out. Here's a bowl. It's a bowl of water. Nah, there's nothing special about it at all, except for that it's room temperature tap water. Here it is. Da na 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 na. Welcome. The orchid is watered. Ta-da! All of the water is going to seep in through all of those holes, which if you have if you get an orchid from a store, it's going to be in like a little plastic pot and it's going to have holes all over it. It's going to do the same thing. It's going to soak up water. Here it goes, soaking up the water, and it should be in there for about 15 minutes, and then you pull it out and let it drain, and you've just watered it. You don't want to water it from up above, and here's why. You see all these grooves and crevices inside the leaves. It's a good way to kill your plant if you water it from up above. All the water is going to get stuck in here, and remember how it doesn't sit in direct sunlight? Well, all of that water is going to sit in those leaves, and it's going to rot, and then you will have one of three types of rot that orchids are commonly found with: crown rot and stem rot. They can also get root rot, which we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, you don't want to do that. This is how you water them. See, he's happy. He's getting watered. He's already moist. You can see all the water in there. There he is. Woohoo! He's getting watered. Which doesn't matter because we're going to pull him out in a second and repot him. Out of the water now, and we're going to pretend, for the sake of argument, that I've just bought this orchid at an orchid store. At a department store. I walked into my Walgreens, I bought this orchid. Okay, how do I take care of it? First, I'm gonna take a look at the entire orchid all over. Generally there'd probably be a flower coming right out of here and it'd be beautiful and everywhere. The flower is not indicative of an orchid's health. The flowers will stay on the orchid for, months really, even while the orchid is dying. So pretend like there is a flower, but we're not going to pay attention to it right now. We're just going to look at the plant. Pay attention to the entire thing. Pay attention particularly for any signs of pests, for any signs of rot. Do the roots look healthy? Do you see crap like this? This is good. This is a happy root. It's got a nice green tip. I know that it's silver right here, but that's quite all right. It's an aerial root. It's not supposed to be totally green. You can see some green roots right here. There's a little bit of sign of like, oh, okay, there's some stuff happening in some of these roots, but overall, looks like a pretty healthy plant to me. Nothing quite wrong with it. This is good. This is what you want to be looking out for on your new plant. Take a look at the stalk. Take a look at the stem and the leaves. Are you seeing anything mushy? Are you seeing anything brown and gross? That means that there's some rot. And it means that the plant hasn't been adequately taken care of. It's still worth a purchase in my mind, because if you know how to take care of it, you can. That's really number one and key to orchids, is you don't want to be afraid of them. They're just plants. I know they look beautiful, and I know that they're potted beautifully, and they usually come in like gorgeous looking planters, and you set them on your table and you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do with this? Don't be afraid of it. It's quite all right. Don't feel free to handle it and really get in there and take a look at it. So, you know, of course, this is one of my orchids. Doesn't have any signs of pests on it, but that doesn't mean I don't regularly check around for them anyway. You know, signs of mites. So, you know, some things aren't, you know, bugs. They're just like little spots, little old damages that used to happen. But overall, this is a happy plant. And if this was a brand new plant, you would still want to think about repotting it. The media is still very old in a brand new plant. It's been in the nursery for several years probably, and has been sitting in that old moss and bark for God knows how long. So it's something that you really want to change out. And especially if it's a sick orchid in need of changing, then that's something you want to do. I think we have time. I need to repot this guy anyway, so I'm going to walk you through how to do that as best I can with one hand. I don't have a tripod, so I'm going to have to take some footage sort of before and after, but I'll do my best to walk you through it as I do it. I always recommend repotting a new orchid, brand new, even if you just got it in the store, even if it has a flower, repot it. It's a good idea. If you don't want to repot your orchid for any reason, you can go ahead and skip to the end of the video, but for right now, we're going to talk about what you need. This is everything I primarily use. My hands are washed. They're clean. This is important, and step number one, wash your hands. What you're going to need is some hydrogen peroxide, which I have here, and I have isopropyl alcohol. I know some people use ethanol. You can use that. I don't like to. You know, isopropyl alcohol you can pick up pretty much anywhere, at least in the United States. You know, some clean towels, a pair of nice sharp scissors, and your new media. This is, for me, old media, but this is, you know, I'm not actually going to use this, but you certainly could use a media like it. You're looking for in any, nursery store, they sell orchid media. It's bark. This is all this is. It's bark, and it's mixed in with some big chunk perlite. And that's what you want. That's what the orchid wants to live in. And it comes in a great big bag, and it's pretty cheap. This is what you want, not in this Parmesan cheese container. But you do want this bark. So that's what you're going to need, and you're going to need enough of it. A nice big pot that'll suit your orchid. Nothing great big, nothing too big. You know, I love using terracotta. You can really use any plant as long as it's got good, adequate drainage holes, and really that's all you need to get started. So let's get started. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, because I can't film this with one hand. I'm going to very gently pull this plant out of its pot and discard the old media completely. I'm going to give all of the roots a nice rinse off and show you what the roots look like too. This is something that you need to do if you are going to replant. Gently pull the plant out, brush off all of the old media. It's best to do it when the plant is wet, so after a good watering. Take off all of the old sphagnum moss, all of the old bark, everything that's old on it, and give it a nice good rinse off of just the roots. Remember, not the leaves, just the roots. And I'll get back to you right after I do that and show you what we do next. All right, here he is completely out of his pot now. This is all media that I'm going to be discarding. So he looks like a hot mess, but that's quite all right. Don't be afraid. I have my big bowl of water right here. We're going to pretend like it's a sink. And let's give him a shake off and dust off and really see what we're dealing with here. Come on. All right. So really, these roots don't look like in terrible shape. From the last time I repotted him, it looks like he's growing quite a few more. But you know, we're just gonna give him a very gentle shake off. I'm not seeing any signs of pests or, I mean, there's too much detritus to tell, but let's get him let's get him in here. We'll give him a nice soak off. I'm gonna clean him up a little bit and we'll come right back. So we're back and he's for the most part cleaned up, and this is what orchid roots look like. They are nuts. Do not be afraid of them. There's a couple things you're looking for here. Of course, the green roots, these are good roots. Look how happy they are. They're growing. The green means that they have seen some light. It doesn't mean necessarily that they're, this is the way you want all of your roots to be. It just means that they've seen, they can... They can collect light themselves, and that's why they're green. You're also going to be looking for anything that's white or anything that's just pale yellow really is okay. The stuff we're looking for here is black. All the black, mushy, brown roots, they've got to go. We're going to take our isopropyl alcohol over here. We're going to give our scissors a really good wipe down, and it's even a good idea to set them on fire just a little bit, get everything off of them, and we're going to go in here and we're going to trim up these roots with scissors. We're going to chop off the ones we don't see. Anything brown that we don't like, boom, it's gone. Don't be afraid of chopping it off. We're going to come right back and see how that looks like. Right, so we're actually going to call that good. There's a couple roots on there that are still just a little bit brown, but they're connected to green and lots of it. So we're going to leave, this one, right here, as you can see, is just a little bit, it's a little gross. But it's not completely detrimental to the plant. You see, it's connected to an awful lot of green there. We're just going to leave that guy on. He doesn't have a whole heck of a lot of roots that we're dealing with, but I left everything that's light yellow and white and green on, and all these right here were clearly brown. Those had to go. So, there's a lot of black happening in here too. There's a lot of old detritus that's left on here. I don't believe in scrubbing my orchids. I think it puts them into too much harm. So we're just going to take our hydrogen peroxide here and we're going to gently pour it all over these roots and wait for it to stop fizzing. And then just set it aside for a moment. It'll be completely fine. It's not going to hurt the plant. Just use your hydrogen peroxide, pour it or mist it directly onto the roots and let it fizz. And then once it's finished, we're going to come back and we're going to put it in a new pot. So we're back and we have our nice clean pot. We've washed our hands again. Our orchid has had a nice long fizz and he's done. Everything is wiped down and cleaned up and we're ready to get everything ready for repotting. Now again, if you're going to be repotting at home, chances are you're going to be using some of this orchid bark. Whoa! Chances are you're going to be using some of this orchid bark, which is perfectly fine to use and is what I frankly would be using. I'm actually going to be using leca, which is a semi-hydroponic, almost sort of stone. It looks a little bit like... I don't know, sort of pebbles. And they hold water and you never have to change them again. If you have a hydroponic store around, they're a lifesaver and I love them. But the process is exactly the same. So let's get started. I'm going to do this one-handed. We're just going to take some media, put it in there. I think my husband is pretty cool with there being semi-hydroponics absolutely everywhere. All over our floor. Gross. Okay. There we go. And then we're going to set our plant in really nice and gently. Come here, buddy. There we go. And we just want the stem, just like last time, to be just like at the edge. Just at the lip right here, and make sure that all of those are nice and comfortable in there. We're going to fill it up with, I can't actually do this two-handed, I thought I could. We're going to fill it up with leca and make sure that everything gets into all these nice crevices, and I'll come right back. So this is a completely repotted orchid. Here he is. Now, when you're repotting, it's a good idea to just kind of give the plant a little wiggle, give the pot a little tap so that all of the medium falls into all these crevices and cracks, just so he's completely in there. Don't mush, don't squeeze, don't pack everything in there. Just very lightly make sure that all the crevices get filled, and then once you're finished, give it a nice water, a good long soak, so that it can get all of that media soaked up with water, and then you can put him right back where he was meant to be. Also, if you see any roots that were just plain old happy doing what they were doing and they didn't want to go in, they saw that they were out of the pot, don't stick them in the media. Any aerial roots want to be in the air. Any roots that are in the ground, they want to be in the ground. So you just want to respect what the plant wants. It'll be healthier that way in the long run. And then once he's done watering, we'll put him right back where he was meant to be. He's back there with all of his friends. Now, as for what to do next, don't touch them. Just like kind of let them be. Keep an eye on them for the next few weeks. Keep an eye on the roots, keep an eye on the leaves, and you're going to want to water these guys, every twice, 2 times a week, 3 times a week, maybe even once a week. You don't want to go any longer than a week without water. It's just not good for the plant. And just give it a soak, just like the last time that we did it. Keep an eye on, any rot that you see happening around here, or any goo, any ooze, any pests. Just kind of keep an eye on it. Every couple days, walk over, give it a good look over and see if it's doing healthy. And that goes with all of your plants. So, if you've been with me this long and you've been watching the whole video, I really appreciate it. That's really nice of you. So thank you. And if you have any other questions, or if I didn't cover something or was too vague on something, please let me know. And I can do another probably shorter video telling you exactly, what you should probably be doing. All right. Take care, guys. Thank you.